You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Hristodoulou.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today, as we do every Tuesday, we're diving into power rankings as we head into week number 7 of the NFL, following a very exciting and full of upset weekend in the NFL, with the Eagles losing, the 49ers losing, a really tight Monday Night Football game that just wrapped up last night. There is so much to discuss, so make sure you comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this past weekend slate of games. Let me hear your power rankings and your thoughts on my power rankings. But diving right into it, beginning with the bottom 4 teams in the NFL. At number 32, we're looking at the Carolina Panthers. At number 31, the New England Patriots. At number 30, we have the Denver Broncos. And then at 29, we are looking at the New York Giants. So sitting at the bottom of the NFL, now I have moved the Carolina Panthers in as they are the only team without a win to this point in the season. And I think sitting at 0-6, despite some of the struggles that we've seen from the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Giants respectively, I think they do deserve that very bottom spot in the NFL. As for the other 3 teams sitting at 1-5, I think you could make a solid argument for where these teams are at any spot between 29 and 32. Heck, I think there's a case for the Broncos, the Patriots, or the Giants to be ranked in that 32nd spot if you really wanted to. But for me, Carolina sits at the very bottom, and then you can really organize these other 3 teams however you really want to. I don't think I need to dive into the details of just how much all 3 of these teams have struggled to this point in the season. I mean, you look at the way the Patriots, it took them, almost 3 weeks to find another touchdown since the second quarter against the Jets 3 weeks ago. The Broncos, for what it's worth, managed 8 points at the very end of a game against the Chiefs where offensively they were just a complete mess. The Giants, I am giving them some credit, hence why they're sitting above and moving up a little bit here in this week's power rankings because of their tight loss to the Buffalo Bills this past weekend. But all 4 of these teams have just absolutely struggled to this point in the season. Next 4 teams we're looking at here, we have ourselves the Chicago Bears sitting at 28, the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 27, Minnesota Vikings at 26, and the Tennessee Titans sitting at number 25. So, Chicago Bears held on, but could not get it done. Losing Justin Fields in that game against the Minnesota Vikings this past weekend was a tough loss. Hopefully he's all right. It sounds like it's a thumb thing with and his was it his throwing hand or his non-throwing hand? I can't remember which hand it was, but I know it's a thumb. A lot of quarterback injuries to keep track of this weekend. I feel like we have like a handful of talk just in these next couple of teams here. But despite that, I mean, they're another team with 1 win at this point in the season. Hopefully Justin Fields is all right, but this is a team that is just not equaling up to the sum of their parts and the additions that they've made this offseason. We've seen a flash or 2 here or there from a player, making a standout play, but it is just really unfortunate the way the Chicago Bears have kind of fallen flat on their face so far this season. Arizona Cardinals, minus Kyler Murray, continuing to kind of just work their way through the season, waiting for whenever it is that he is supposed to return to this team here. Not much of a fight against their division rival in the LA Rams this week. This is probably the worst loss that the Cardinals have taken this season, considering that they had the massive upset over the Dallas Cowboys. And for the most part, they've been pretty much in it all of their games up until this point here. So, and obviously the thrashing against the 49ers, but they've been a very competitive team for only having 1 victory to this point here. So hence why they're a little bit higher than the other teams at the bottom here with only 1 victory. The Vikings at 26, I don't have them moving here despite their victory over the Chicago Bears, because like we just talked about, for them to win that game, hats off to them. It was not a pretty victory by any means. Their offense is clearly going to struggle a bit minus Justin Jefferson. It's clear that he was the heart and soul of that group there, but for them to come away with only a 6-point victory against the Bears team that wound up losing Justin Fields, and against the Bears defense that has not really been great, even despite not having Justin Jefferson, I would have expected the Vikings to maybe play a little bit better in that game and win a little bit more handedly, but it is what it is. They're a team right now that's sitting with only 2 victories, and another one of those teams that I think should be a little bit better record-wise, but turnovers have just been the Achilles heel of this team. And then at number 25, we have the Tennessee Titans dropping a couple of spots here after a really tough loss, and another injury-riddled team here with obviously the high ankle sprain now with Ryan Tannehill, something to keep an eye on with him. The question now is it going to be Malik Willis or Will Levis going forward for the team? But this is a team that's dealing with injuries, and despite the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, is just not quite where it should be, coupled with the offensive line woes that they've had. The run game is not as explosive. The passing game has just kind of washed away. And this is a Titans team that feels like it's kind of crumbling right now, and it's a little ugly to watch. And I hate that because I'm a big fan of Mike Vrabel, but this is they're at this point with the Ryan Tannehill injury, it feels like this team is now in like that turnover period where we're going to just kind of see what we have with some of the younger guys on this team and just kind of start looking forward to next year, because I know that's not really the way of Mike Vrabel and his staff over there, and I don't really think that's going to be exactly what they do, but that's definitely something that I think is going to have to be considered as we move forward with the injuries that they're dealing with and just the lack of explosiveness on this offense here. You could tell that they were struggling against that Ravens defense, and I don't really know if things are going to get better with Malik Willis or Will Levis under center. I think it's going to take quite an effort from either one of those two to help spark something in this offense and make things look better than it has so far. But who knows? I could be totally wrong, and they could win out the rest of the season here, but don't think that's too likely. Next four teams we have at number 24, we're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders. At 23, the New Orleans Saints. At 22, we have the Indianapolis Colts. And then at 21, we're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Raiders here. Big victory. Josh McDaniels improving to, I believe, 3-0 over Bill Belichick now as a head coach with 2 victories in Las Vegas now. And I believe he also beat the Patriots back in Denver when he was head coach over there a handful of years back. But at this point, it took the Patriots to give the Raiders an opportunity to seal up a couple of victories back-to-back now, and they are fighting their way back in the AFC West, which at this point here is pretty much for the Chiefs taking. I want to give some serious credit to the defense in this game here. And again, I know it took a Patriots team that is basically fumbling around at this point all over on offense, but for them to be able to kind of weather what was a slight storm, or maybe like I don't know if you want to call it a storm, but, a little bit of like a tropical thing going down there with the Patriots finally finding some offense for the first time in the last handful of weeks. Max Crosby delivering that big blow at the very end of the game, forcing the safety and allowing them to take that first. I believe that's the first time they've gone over 20 points this season. I think I heard that in the broadcast as well. This is a team right now that's trying to figure itself out, and minus Jimmy Garoppolo now, because I know he's dealing with that back injury. He obviously got taken to the hospital with that. I don't know if this team is going to continue to trend in a positive direction, because the running game is not where it should be, or at least expected to have been based off of what we saw from Josh Jacobs and the O-line last year. This is just another one of those teams that it's a good win, but I don't know if it's a sign of things to come, I think is the best way to put that for the Raiders. But I do give them a +1 in the rankings for their victory over their AFC, I would say, rival at this point, is what it kind of feels like between Belichick and McDaniels. At number 23, we have the New Orleans Saints here, and despite a really good defensive effort, the offense just struggling against the Houston Texans defense that is surprisingly bringing the heat to a lot of teams so far this year, and a team that's really impressed me, and I don't think a lot of people saw or expected to be as good as it has been to this point here. And I'm not sitting here saying that they're the best defense in the NFL by any means, but they've definitely surprised with what kind of feels like a group of guys that they just kind of pieced together this offseason. But DeMeco Ryans has that defense playing extremely well. It clearly gave the Saints fits. And at this point, with the amount of talent that you have over there in New Orleans, you have to be starting to question the decision to bring in Derek Carr at this point. And I know that the offensive line is kind of dealing with some stuff too, and you've had like injury issues or suspension issues with like certain skill players, but I mean, you have Chris Olave now, you have Michael Thomas, you have Alvin Kamara. You should be producing something more than what we've been getting out of this Saints offense right now, and it's one of those offenses that it's like every single week I expect to see a little bit more from them and hope that they start to take the step in the right direction, and they just really haven't. And I mean, minus like the whacking that they did on the Patriots last week, there has not really been a lot to love about this Saints offense. So hopefully it improves, but I'm just, at this point, I thought Derek Carr, and for whatever your opinion might be of him prior to him coming into New Orleans, I thought he was an upgrade to the quarterback situation that they had. So now we're looking at an offense that has not really changed much. I don't even know if you could say it's gotten better to this point, but that's where I stand with New Orleans at this point. And then the Colts at number 22. This one pains me, but dropping them down 6 spots here. Tough loss. They fall to 9 straight losses in Jacksonville at this point, dating all the way back to when Andrew Luck was still quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. But Oh, man. With Anthony Richardson now potentially being done for the year, and that's the way it sounds like it's heading according to Jim Irsay. There's apparently some back and forth on what exactly should be done regarding Anthony Richardson's shoulder, but if he's going to be out for the year, and I understand that, some people might look at Gardner Minshew as like the best backup in the NFL and a guy that if you lose your starting quarterback, he would be a good guy to have. Maybe the Colts just start looking towards next year, giving some of the younger guys more opportunities to get those reps in and just kind of see what you have for next season. I don't really want to see the Colts try to start making some improbable run to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew under center. I just don't really think that's a realistic possibility. So at this point, I feel like with the loss, you kind of see the direction that this team might head with Minshew under center already. I mean, the defense has been fun to watch this year, but maybe let's just start looking forward to next year. And I don't quite think I believe in this offense minus Anthony Richardson. It was definitely interesting and exciting during the few moments that Anthony Richardson was healthy, but I don't know if Gardner Minshew under center is going to really amount to a ton for the Colts to be hanging on to this year. It's going to take a massive defensive effort right now, and I don't know if the defense of Indianapolis is quite at that level to carry this team that far. And then at 21, of course, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They dropped a spot. I know they didn't play this week. They didn't do anything. It's just a matter of other teams moving around them. So Steelers at 21, mainly because of some adjusting going on around them, but a team that offensively just needs to get better with their play calling. And on top of that, defense, phenomenal group. But moving into the next four, at number 20, we have ourselves the Green Bay Packers. At number 19, we're looking at the Atlanta Falcons. At number 18, the Washington Commanders. And 17, we have the New York Jets. So the Green Bay Packers sitting at number 20 here, dropping a couple of spots as well. A team that, again, has a really good defense, but this offense is more so just about the youth and inexperience that they're dealing with, especially at the wide receiver and quarterback spot. Offensive line is dealing with some injuries as well. I'm a little bit concerned about the direction that this Packers team might start to head now with the way the offense is. Because again, with all that youth and inexperience, and a lot of the experience coming from either the running back room or your O-line, I'm just a little bit concerned about where things are going to head for the Green Bay Packers offensively. Defensively, I think they still have a really good unit with some really good players, some veterans on top of that, like Jair Alexander, one of the best corners in the NFL. But right now, with just kind of the shakiness of Jordan Love that we saw the last time that the Packers played, not this past week, the week prior, and just, again, that youth and inexperience in the wide receiver core, I could see this team kind of starting to stumble. And with the O-line really up in the air right now with injuries, concerns about a Packers team that I was pretty high on just a few weeks ago. At number 19, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who I dropped 7 spots here. This is a big correction and one that I think was kind of overdue, and I even said that last week in my power rankings when I had them up, I believe, at number 13, if they're dropping 7 here. A team that has just offensively left me in complete shambles, I feel like, watching them the last few weeks, and I know Arthur Smith certainly agrees with me. You can see the facial expressions he's making during games with the eye rolling and just the sulking and just the disappointment I feel like you see on his face sometimes. At this point, you have so much talent on that offense, and I know the O-line maybe has not performed quite up to the level of some people's expectations, mine being a part of that, because I thought this O-line was supposed to be a really big strength for them coming into this year, and they are still great on the ground, don't get me wrong, but pass protection's been a little bit shaky, and it's clear that it's gotten to Desmond Ridder, and at this point, I just don't know if I can hang on to the Desmond Ridder bandwagon anymore, and I'm kind of just hoping that maybe we see a change at quarterback soon, because you have so much skill talent on that offense that I don't think is being utilized to its maximum potential, and part of it has to do with the quarterback play. So defensively, great unit. If the offense was playing better, I think this defense would be considered even better than where they are right now, but I feel like with an offense that just keeps turning the football over, or 3 and out here, 3 and out there, or maybe like a first down and then a 3 and out, they just, man, a Falcons team that is really disappointing me, because I think that they could be better than what they are right now, but quarterback needs to get solved. Offensive lines protection needs to be better in the pass, but I'm fine with them at 19 for now. Commanders sitting at number 18, beating the Falcons that we were just talking about, moving up 4 spots here. Now, it seems like a lot for beating the Falcons, but mainly because of just like, if you clearly see, there are 5 teams sitting below them that all had to drop for me this week. So a little bit of a nice jump for the Commanders, but a team that's sitting at 3-3 nonetheless. Sam Howell, when he's on, is awesome to watch. And I feel like for a guy to come in who's still working through like his first rookie season of games at this point now, I know he's a second year guy, but he hasn't played a full season yet as a starter. This is basically like his rookie campaign. He is fun to watch. When he's on, he is on. And for him to have been able to take it the way he did to a Falcons defense that's been pretty good this season, hats off to him. And the defense for the Commanders, a unit that has not really played up to the level of the team that they have on paper in some instances. Even if you look at the numbers, like statistically, they've struggled in some games here. Did a great job shutting down and bringing some problems to the Atlanta Falcons offense. So good step in the right direction for a team that has been competitive in some of its losses. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we were watching them go into overtime against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, this is a team that is just, it feels like they're trying to find themselves right now, but sitting at 3-3, right in the middle of the pack at 18, I'm fine with them there. And then the New York Jets. Unbelievable performance defensively, obviously. You come in with a Philadelphia Eagles team that has been running wild on people, and you completely slam down the run and clearly disrupting the passing game. The defense that they have in New York, I sincerely hope just does not get wasted. Seeing Aaron Rodgers without a walking boot, without crutches, gingerly throwing a football around prior to game time this past week, if he can somehow make his way back, because as a guy, I'm a fitness person before I got into all this football stuff. And for someone like me to understand like the nuances of an Achilles injury that he was dealing with, for him to have come back as fast as he has, to not be on crutches, to not be in a walking boot, I've got to know what he's doing for his recovery there, because it's just like it's one of those things that like medically you're looking at and you're like, wow, how is this dude just kind of hanging around? He's fine, walking around under his own power already. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we just saw him on crutches, and it wasn't that long ago that he just had his surgery done. Like, he's 4 or 5 weeks out of post-op at this point. I mean, I don't know if people are typically walking without any sort of assistance that quickly, even if it was just for a limited amount of time. If this defense can hang on and the Jets offense can just play clean, sound, mistake-free football, if they're sitting at, let's say, like 6-6, 7-7, something like that, and Aaron Rodgers makes some unforeseen miracle comeback before this season is done, because he said that that's his plan, the Jets have a shot. The Jets have a shot in that wild and crazy scenario. I don't think it's likely, but it is something to think about. This defense is great. And when Zach Wilson isn't turning the ball over, the offense is serviceable. The running back group that they have there is a strong one. If they can just lean on the run, not turn the football over, let their defense carry the load, there might be a light at the end of this tunnel. So I'm fine with them at 17. They're the best of the bottom half of the NFL, in my opinion. But man, did not expect them to get the upset victory that they got this week. I jumped them 7 spots for that victory, because if you're knocking off the final undefeated team, I think you deserve some recognition for that. So big bump for them this week, plus 7 spots. Moving into the top half of the NFL, though, at number 16, we're looking at the LA Chargers. At number 15, we have the Houston Texans. At 14, the LA Rams. And then at number 13, we're talking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Chargers dropping a couple of spots here, coming down to the wire against the Dallas Cowboys. And for the most part, offensively, I've got to say, like, protection-wise, they handled the Cowboys defense really well. It wasn't literally up until the very end of that game where, like, they kind of fell apart to the Cowboys defense. I mean, Micah Parsons got a sack on the second to last play of their defensive side of the game. And then obviously the interception comes not too long after that. But I don't know if the finger thing is bothering Justin Herbert a little bit more, but he just kind of seemed like he was off right now. And I know that, like, I'm pretty sure, like, I understand that, it's not his throwing hand with the finger thing, but as somebody who's had a couple of finger injuries in my life, and they even said it on the broadcast here, and when I heard it, I was like, that's so true. You don't realize how painful and how, like, in the way your hands get of day-to-day life until you hurt a finger, and then you're just banging that finger off of everything because you're trying not to do that, so it's the only thing on your mind, and it just seems like everything becomes an object that your hand is going to smack off of. So maybe that pain and that was kind of, was maybe throwing Justin Herbert off a little bit, but I mean, they're off right now. They're off, and I'm worried about the Chargers. And I mean, Austin Eckler came back, clearly needs to knock some of the rust off, but just the miscues and the poor time, like and the missed throws from Justin Herbert were really what got to me during this game here. And I mean, the Chargers had every shot and then some to potentially steal this game from the Cowboys here, but they just could not get it done. Defensively, though, I will say, for a defense that has not been great this year, they definitely held down the Cowboys. And for being 2-3, that's probably why I have them as high as I do, because they finally showed up defensively in a really big spot here on Monday Night Football. I do think that they are one of the better teams of the back half of the group of the NFL. Like you can even see here, they're 2-3, but I have them ahead of some 3-3 teams because just on paper, roster wise, I trust in this team more than I do some of these other teams that we've already talked about previously. But right now, a little bit concerned about them. And I would not be shocked if I find myself having to drop them into the bottom half of the NFL following next week or within the next couple of weeks, should things continue to trend in the direction they are right now for them. Coming in at number 15, we have the Houston Texans, and I have got to say, I am blown away by the job that DeMeco Ryans is currently doing over there in Houston. For a rookie head coach to be taking what feels kind of like a patchwork team that for the last couple of years has dealt with so much turnover, to be able to get the guys that they got, which was honestly, it feels like scraps, because let's be serious now, for the last few years, it's not like Houston was the premier destination for some players to go play at, but for them to have taken what they have and to be at 3-3 and to be as competitive as they have been has been awesome to watch. Will Anderson Jr. and CJ Stroud both looking like very worthy of their selection. CJ Stroud especially. I mean, this guy has been having an incredible rookie campaign to this point here, and to watch him play the way he does, especially against a Saints defense that is really, really good and one that has given a lot of teams some fits. Just ask the Patriots last week. For him to be able to step up in the face of that Saints defense and to be able to pull off what he did this past weekend really solidified my belief in him. And I'm a Colts fan, for those of you that don't realize this. As a Colts fan saying this right now, I envy and can appreciate what CJ Stroud is doing in his rookie campaign right now. And for him to be leading such a young group of guys with so much potential upside, and he is getting the absolute most out of his teammates right now offensively, this is a team to watch. They will not die. They will not go away. They are a thorn in your side, and that's the Houston Texans' MO. I feel like that's always been the Texans' MO, and they are defining that this season right now. Keep an eye on Houston. I don't know where they're going to go from here, but I'm starting to buy in. They've had some shaky moments here or there, but after this big win over the Saints, and for their team offensively to deal with what the Saints bring defensively as well as they did, I'm loving what I'm seeing on paper. Loving what I'm seeing on paper. I'm loving what I'm seeing in game. The numbers are there to back it all up. There is so much to like about this Texans team right now. At number 14, we're looking at the LA Rams. Another nice victory for them this week here. One that, never really felt like they were in much trouble of losing this game. I felt like even when the score was tight for like the better part of the first half of the game, I never really felt too concerned. Defensively, you still have Aaron Donald leading the way with a bunch of young guys here, but this is a team that is clearly, I think they're basically out right now to kind of shock the world. A lot of people, myself included, kind of wrote this team off. I mean, you weren't really sure what you were going to get with Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp was missing all this time here, but Puka Nacua wound up stepping up, and for them to come in, going up against a Cardinals team that, for the most part, despite only having one win, has been a very competitive team, completely rolled their division rival. They're sitting at 500 right now. Matthew Stafford continuing to try to, work Cooper Kupp back into the swing of things here. This offense is going to continue to get better. There's so much to like about this team offensively right now, and I think the defense is starting to catch up as well. I would not be shocked if come season end we're watching this Rams team fighting, even if it's not for the division, but let's say they're fighting for 7, 6 seeds, something like that. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see that Rams team there, but liking what I'm seeing so far. Good victory for them this past week. They're working their way into playoff contention, hence why I have them sitting in that 14 spot. At number 13, dropping a couple of spots, we have those Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and for a team that, coming off of a bye week, kind of almost felt like they came in a little sleepy against a Lions team that is just red hot right now. I will say, though, they're at 3-2. I love the defense that they have over there and the way they play. They had an opportunity, but again, the Lions right now they're really overwhelming, especially offensively. And the defensive front, what they're doing in Detroit is tough to come up against. And I feel like if there was any team to have to pull coming off of a bye, the Lions were probably not the team you wanted to have, because again, you're coming off a little bit, not sleepy, but you had maybe the extra time to game plan, but you also had that time to unwind, relax, get out of the swing of things, and then you have to ramp back up and get yourself back into it. I just felt like the Lions were the wrong team to get coming off of a bye here. My confidence isn't too shaken in this team, though. I really like what the Buccaneers have been doing this year. I think they're one of those teams that'll hang around, especially in a weak NFC South right now. So keep an eye on them. But I would say my confidence shaken just a little bit because it felt like the lights were on a little too bright against the Detroit Lions. And that's not something I thought I'd ever say ever, but here I am saying it, And then moving into at number 12, Cincinnati Bengals continuing to climb the leaderboard, working their way back from the depths of near the bottom of the league when a lot of people were writing them off as dead. The Cleveland Browns sitting at number 11 with their awesome, improbable victory that they pulled off this past week. The Seattle Seahawks slipping down 3 spots here, and the Dallas Cowboys staying right where they are at number 9. Starting with the Bengals, though, was not a pretty game by any means. Dealt with some struggles going up against the Seahawks this week, and to be fair, the Seahawks have a pretty good defense, especially their pass rush. I wasn't really surprised that they dealt with the issues that they had against Seattle, just because of the amount of depth that they have when it comes to that defensive front over there in Seattle. But one of those things where offensive line for the Bengals just kind of continues to be an issue here. But we're starting to see the Jamar Chase big plays. We even got T. Higgins involved this week as well. Joe Burrow kind of working his way back into the swing of things. It feels like we're starting to get the bang, and it feels like it's happened the last 2 years, and it feels like it's starting to happen again here. Bengals, they're dead at the beginning of the season, but then they start, grinding out some wins. Big victory over a Seattle Seahawks team that a lot of people like to make it to the playoffs this year, myself included on that list. Big victory late, defensive stand to shut things down against Geno Smith. Keep an eye on the Bengals. They're working their way back into it, and they have a great quarterback to lead this team, coupled with a really good defense, great defensive coordinator. This is a team to not forget about, and I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead of some of the people that are still, maybe forgetting about the Bengals, but don't sleep on them because they're going to come back, and I can already feel it happening. At number 11, the Cleveland Browns. You might want to argue that they should probably be higher than where I have them right now. Some of you might think this is still way too high for them. I don't know. The crowd feels very split on Cleveland. I get some people yelling at me about where Cleveland should be pretty much every single week. What I know is that this defense that they have here is on a record pace right now, and they can terrorize any offense they please. If the offense, when Deshaun Watson comes back to play, whenever that may be, when the offense is back at full strength, minus Nick Chubb, of course, when they get back on track, and if they can even just get serviceable play consistently out of Deshaun Watson, this is a team to fear. I watched this Cleveland Browns defense, and I know Christian McCaffrey went down with injury, and then Deebo Samuel also went out with injury. But even with them in there, this defense rocked an offense to its core that had not scored less than 30 points a game. I fear this Browns defense for any team that they go against. And this will be the last time, this season at least, where I just completely write off Cleveland, because I did not expect them to be able to stay competitive. I thought maybe the defense would give some problems early, but then ultimately the offense would just start to overwhelm, because I did not give the Browns offense much of a chance in this game, and they didn't really do much offensively, but just defensively, they were that dominant, that disruptive, and that much of an issue for this 49ers team. They brought Brock Purdy his very first regular season loss. Whole 49ers organization coming back down to earth here. I don't know what to make of the Browns, because their offense and defense are on like two opposite ends of the spectrum. But watching what they did this week gives them some serious recognition. Serious recognition. Very impressed with what they did. Cannot believe they came away with the victory that they did. They were this close to losing. Jake Moody, probably very popular in Cleveland this weekend, but they got the win nonetheless. So got to give them credit where it's due, because I don't think anyone had that game being even nearly that close. I definitely did not. At 10, Seattle Seahawks, as we mentioned, struggling with the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a defense that, for the most part, is good and has been good for the last few years. Early part of the season, struggling a bit, not quite as dominant as they had been, but it really felt like the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals kind of rounded themselves out this week, and they gave some fits to Geno Smith. DK Metcalf was dealing with an injury too during that game. He left for some time. I don't really know what to make of Seattle's offense right now, because there are some weeks where they just look like they are on it. And then there's you think about their victory over the Lions being able to push 30 points against their defense, but then you go up against a Cincinnati Bengals defense that has not really impressed that much this season. And for them to just kind of fall flat on their face, they're getting into the red zone, failing to convert, failing to get into the end zone. You just got to clean it up offensively, because realistically, I really feel like that's a game the Seattle Seahawks should have won. And a piece of me kind of wants to say that, maybe they gave the game away a little bit, but just really disappointed overall by that offense over there in Seattle this week. So hopefully they can clean that up and get back to what they've been doing, because it's kind of crazy to me to see them, again, you're dropping 30 points and winning in overtime to the Lions a few weeks ago, and now here you are going up against the Bengals defense that just was not really great. You held their offense fairly well for the most part, and you just kind of fell flat on your face offensively. Couldn't get the job done. And even Geno Smith was willing to take credit for all of it, so respect to him. I'm not worried about the Seahawks too much, but they've definitely got to clean up what we saw from them this week. And then at number 9, the Dallas Cowboys. Getting the job done. Near heart attack for me. I picked them to win that game, so I'm at the edge of my seat until the very end there, especially between this one and Sunday Night Football. I've had enough of these really tight games. But credit to them. Got the job done. Did not bring nearly the pressure I would have thought they would have, but one sack when they needed it most. Great play by who else but Micah Parsons. Offensively, little bit concerned. The team is not on right now offensively, and for them to go up against a Chargers unit that has not been impressive by any means, especially defending the pass, I kind of expected this to be a massive bounce back game for the Cowboys, and I thought Dak Prescott would wind up with like 3 touchdowns when it was all said and done, and it felt like they were just like pulling teeth trying to move the football down the field the entirety of the game. Even when they started to move the football, it felt like they were pulling teeth trying to get themselves down the field. So shaky game offensively. Defense did a really good job weathering the storm over there in LA. I'll keep them at 9 for now. They're 4-2. Good spot to be in right now. Would have expected them to win a little bit more handedly against a Chargers team that's been kind of, not where they should be, and I already spoke about that at length with them, but they got the win. We'll keep them in the top 10 for right now. Moving into the top 8 teams, though, number 8 to number 5. At number 8, we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens. At 7, Jacksonville Jaguars. At 6, the Miami Dolphins. And at 5, the Buffalo Bills. Baltimore Ravens dominating. And I would say that the score made it look a little bit closer than it really was. I feel like that was the Ravens game from pretty much the jump. They just were dominating up front all game long against the Tennessee Titans there in London. And I know it got a little bit closer in the end, but minus a couple of big plays that let the Titans get the score a little bit closer. For the most part, it was a really great game defensively by the Ravens. The offense continues to just it's very clear that they're running a new system there with Lamar Jackson. This does not feel like the Ravens offense we've been seeing the last few years. And there are some weeks where it feels like they're figuring it out, but there are other weeks where this week kind of felt like it. You obviously got the Zay Flowers touchdown, which is great for the rookie to get that out of the way, but it feels like there are some weeks where they're just really struggling to click completely. And it's one of those things where I feel like the offense will be better for it in the long run, but now we're starting to approach that middle point of the season where you were hoping that maybe they'd be a little bit further along right now. So that is my one complaint on that, but they're still winning football games in part because of how great their defense has been. But that's just kind of my gripe I have with the Ravens right now. I feel like we're still watching an offense that's trying to figure itself out with a new offense here, with a new offensive coordinator. And until that gets sorted out, I can't buy into the Ravens all in right now. But a great defense coupled with an offense that can be good when things are clicking, I like them at 8. At 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars dominating their division rival again for the 9th straight victory in Jacksonville. A game that I fully expected them to come in and win, and even though the score was 37-20, I feel like that score made it look a little bit closer than it actually was. It never really gave the Colts a chance to get into that game. They jumped out to a really early lead and just kind of were dinking and dunking and doing their thing the entire game. They have so much talent over there in Jacksonville. As long as they are clicking and connecting, minus the concern with the sore knee and Trevor Lawrence, a little bit worried about that. But overall, it's a playoff team. The AFC South is theirs to lose at this point, especially with the possibility that Anthony Richardson's going to be gone now. I know the Texans are kind of streaming right behind them, and they do have a win over the Jaguars already, but the AFC South is the Jaguars to lose right now. Absolutely. But hats off to them, winning a game they absolutely should have. The Dolphins at 6. I don't know if they were playing some sort of game with the Panthers. They let themselves fall down 14-0 and then just dropped 42 on them. The Dolphins are one of the very few teams that can do something like that. I remember, I'm watching Red Zone. I'm trying to keep up with games and things like that this Sunday. And, I'm watching I'm literally watching every game as it all happens, and then watching them back later on to, see things that I missed, important things and whatnot. And when I saw it was 14-0 with Miami, because that's one of those games where I wrote off the Panthers completely, was not expecting much from them, being able to keep up from them. One of the games that I probably was tuning into less than some of the other ones. I see it's 14-0 with Carolina, so I'm like, what is going on here? But sure enough, Dolphins sorted themselves out. They shut things down, 42-21 victory. They run away with the game. Just don't scare me like that, Miami. That's all. Just don't scare me. Other than that, offensive juggernaut, one of the better teams in the AFC, hence why I have them at 6. The Bills. I don't know what it is with Buffalo, but there are just some games where it feels like they get in their own way, or they don't come in 100% ready to go or something. I don't know what it is with Buffalo. They are still one of the best in the AFC. Absolutely. Their defense is phenomenal, but the offense sometimes, and despite all the injuries that they have on defense right now, still a great group. But offensively, they just have games where they come in and it feels like they play too loose. And Josh Allen gets away with some of the craziest things. Like, I think of the touchdown that he had to Quentin Morris, like, phenomenal throw. Not a lot of quarterbacks, if like more than like 5, could realistically make that throw. And they're just not, sometimes they don't feel sharp. And you're letting a Giants team that defensively has not really done very much at all this year completely shut you down for the majority of the game. I don't know what to say about that offense. They scare me sometimes, Buffalo. Like, they're a great team on paper. They are a great team through 6 weeks now. But just some games they come in and they just do not have it offensively, or they're stumbling over themselves out of the gate, and then it like snowballs, and then it's like, okay, we win the game, but we have to like really try to win the game. You saw it with the Jets. You saw it again with the Giants this week. It's just one of those things where they just, for whatever reason, have these games where if they don't start out hot, they like come out of the gate stumbling, and it snowballs through the whole game. And sometimes they'll still win the game anyways. But this was one of those games where they stumbled out of the gate, and then from there it just felt like they were trying to pick themselves up for literally what felt like 4 quarters. And you finished the game off with a play at the 1, and the Giants nearly stealing a victory from you that you had no business nearly losing a game like that. But to wrap things up, the top 4, I've been excited to do this one here. To finish off, heading into week number 7, top 4 teams in the NFL right now. At number 4, we're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. At number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. And at number 1, the Detroit Lions. Lions fans, soak it in while I talk about the other 3 teams. Philadelphia Eagles, offensively, just completely shut down. Defense continuing to do their thing, still as dominant as ever. But when your offense turns the ball over as many times as it does, there's only so much you can do. I don't know if this was one of those games where the Eagles just kind of were looking past the Jets. I feel like we've seen that happen a lot this year, where Very good teams are going up against teams that have no business beating them and are losing. That is a theme for this season, a very large theme. It's not like good teams losing to good teams. No, we are watching really good teams, some of the best in the NFL, losing to teams that are sitting at the bottom of the power rankings or in the bottom half of the power rankings. It has been a bizarre season, and the Eagles fell to that same trap game issue. I don't really know what to make of this game. The run game was shut down. Jalen Hurts had the 3 interceptions. I mean, it was just a poor game offensively. The 49ers at number 3, just overwhelmed. Injuries and being overwhelmed. This and the missed field goals are ultimately what cost you this one here, because you're realistically 2 missed field goals away from winning that game as opposed to losing that game. Or you're 1 missed field goal away, to be honest with you. If Jake Moody hits the one at the end, you're fine. But even then, he missed another field goal earlier in the game as well. 2 missed field goals, and if you have either one of those, we're talking a very different story right now, potentially. The Chiefs, sitting at number 2, continuing to find ways to win, even when their offense isn't as dominant as it has been. I think Harrison Butker had like 4 field goals in this game altogether, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't remember the exact number was, but to shut down Denver until basically the final minutes of the game, you kind of embarrassed Denver on top of that. Denver still has yet to beat them since 2015 at this point. September 17th, I believe, is the last time Denver has beaten the Chiefs. They are still the class of the AFC. No matter what their struggles are, if the offense doesn't look great, the defense has been looking phenomenal this year. Before it was the Patrick Mahomes show in the offense, and they were kind of carrying the defense. And this season, it's kind of flipped. And I'm kind of here for it. It's fun watching the Chiefs get it done in a very different way, where it's not as beautiful and pretty offensively, but that defense is dominating, shutting teams down, and embarrassing opposing offenses. It's a very fun thing to watch. And then the Detroit Lions. I have been hearing it for weeks now. People have been telling me about where this team should be. I wanted the Lions to earn it, and they did it this week. They come in, punch their opponents in the mouth, dominate in what I thought would have been a tighter contest, but I was very surprised at what the Detroit Lions were able to do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. But in the same week that you watch both the San Francisco 49ers go down, the Philadelphia Eagles go down, you already have a win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Whether you care about those injuries to Chris Jones and Travis Kelce in that game or not, you can't take that victory away from them. And the Detroit Lions, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, sit at the top of the NFL as the number 1 team in my power rankings. I cannot believe I'm saying that, but they are as hot as any team in the NFL right now, and they have been hot going into last season. I believe they're on a 13-3 run right now, 14-3 run, something like that. This Lions team is for real, and at this point, they feel like the team to beat in not only the NFC, but in the NFL. But those are my power rankings. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. That is it for me. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.